supplies of energy, in particular LNG imports. This has brought energy prices down, and we are benefiting from that. But of course, the energy crisis is not over yet. We will still have to deal with the next winter.
Germany, a powerhouse located in the center of Europe, has a strong economy and is well known for its innovative technology, superior manufacturing, and engineering skills, a shining example of economic progress. However, beneath the surface of wealth is a dynamic landscape that faces issues like changing demographics and unpredictability in the global economy. Is it though? This economic titan, with its complex fusion of modern technology and tradition, has reshaped the world economy, leading us to consider and investigate the adaptation and resilience that characterize Germany's economic story. Make sure to like and subscribe as we dive into the matter. The Economist insisted on naming Germany the sick man of Europe, not just once in 1999, but again 25 years later. You see, Germany was going through a brutal recession just at the start of the year 1989. High taxes and high cost of labor made numbers skyrocket through the roof, which is a paradox because the more unemployed people, the more the cost and taxes are raised, and the cycle repeats itself. Despite this, Germany managed to crawl its way into being one of the strongest economic states in between. Well, most of it is owed to the fact that unions had a seat at the table, which of course made them voluntarily accept cheap wages, making Germany much more competitive and easily bringing in heaps of money for its economy. Now, if the Chinese government could buy advanced cars and machines made with completely clean and green energy from Germany at a reduced cost, why wouldn't they? This is exactly how Germany reached its golden decades of economic growth. However, this is when things started to go downhill. Just after its peak, German politicians grew increasingly confident, enough so that they refused to even ask for help to develop the country's infrastructure, failing to take into account the long-lasting impacts of it in the future. You can easily find this statement to be true if you just take a look at the state's railroad systems and various bridge networks. They're painfully behind. Another factor the Economist mentioned was the lack of a digitized bureaucratic system. Permits and other legal technicalities take almost 3 times as much time compared to France or Italy. This is especially bad for Germany because it makes it exceedingly difficult for companies like Tesla to bypass the legal terms before establishing their factories. Germany's dependence on Russian gas abruptly increases energy costs, which in turn means that companies in the biggest industrial sectors are now actually leaving the country. With Chinese industries threatening Germany in the car manufacturing sector, maybe selling the same machines to them must have been a bad idea. Of course, Germany's government sees these issues, but the solution is being blocked by 2 of Germany's ruling parties, preventing any significant change. The issues with these parties is that one is advocating for dependency on Russian gas because the consequences of using nuclear are much more dire, while the liberal FDP party refuses to make any contribution to the country's public needs. It's a vicious back and forth. Now that we know everything the Economist deems suitable enough to name Germany the sick man of Europe, let's change focus for a while and talk about how Mr. Schmeeding strongly disagrees with these critics. His initial point is a very valid statement, saying that after COVID, every country in the world has gone through a heavy recession, not just Germany. Singling them out is just pure bias, especially considering the US and China manufacturing sectors being in extreme trouble. Even then, Germany was the one supplying parts to these industries in the first place. It was the source of development of materials the other countries needed. The epidemic boosted Germany's manufacturing sector, and now, as things slightly start to go back to normal, of course, it suffers a bit. Mr. Schmeeding also points out the differences between the decades of growth Germany has gone through. For example, the unemployment rate is very low, which might not improve the labor shortages in car manufacturing and chemical sectors. Adding on to that, Germany is now one of Europe's most well-positioned economies to invest in itself, given that both its government and private debt levels are far lower than most European economies. Crazy, right? And that does not even include Germany's tech and trade, which has built a huge stack of currency reserves that can easily fund their slow years. Now, one of the more admirable things is that he recognizes the valid points the Economist makes in criticizing Germany. For example, selling to China and the aging bureaucracy because of politicians that fell behind. However, He doesn't fail to mention that measures against complacency are being taken and new reform proposals are already in place and effective. Now, regarding the aging population in Germany, according to him, more immigration of highly trained immigrants from other countries, such as Russia or Ukraine, could counteract the effects of demographic change. He does point out that, contrary to the 2006 statistics prediction that Germany's population would decrease from 82 million in 2006 to about 80 million today, the country's population climbed to 84 million by the end of 2022. Many thanks to immigration. You heard both sides now. Let's go back to our main concern. Is Germany Europe's sick man again? No, it's not. Indeed, The Economist presented a very strong argument for why the German economy cannot continue to be as complacent as it once was, given the numerous issues it is currently facing. But to refer to it as the sick man of Europe is going a bit too far, particularly because many other European economies are facing comparable issues and do not have the same exceptionally low rates of unemployment and debt. However, this will only be beneficial if German politicians realize that they must radically modernize the state to adapt to the new geopolitical environment and acknowledge that infrastructure investment is essential for a thriving economy to expand. As a matter of fact, last November, it was the UK. Then, it was Italy. A couple of months ago, it was France. And now, Germany. At this point, which European economy is not the sick man of Europe? It's really important to remember that Germany was completely dependent on Russia for natural gas, coal, and energy. When the sanctions hit Russia, it was expected that the German GDP would shrink around 6% because of price shocks and expensive energy costs. And of course, it didn't happen, as the country navigated the crisis better than expected. You have to consider the fact that many businesses are also closing because they have been kept artificially alive during COVID by governmental financial support. Now that the artificial life support is fading, they are naturally dying off. What Germany needs to do is become attractive again to middle and large businesses by reducing bureaucracy and taxes while pushing digitalization and investment in research. Germany might be the sick man of Europe from time to time, but more often than not, it is the core economy of the European Union. Nothing against large economies like Italy or France, but Germany seems more reliable long-term. Historically, the German economy has always been very stable. In the past 50 years at least, Germany has never seen huge spurts of growth or stagnation, which is its biggest strength. One could argue that the supply of cheap gas from Russia might be restored once Putin eventually departs from power, leading to potential improvements in relations with the West. However, the Chinese car market, once a significant source of prosperity, has now vanished indefinitely. EVs have taken over, with 35% of the Chinese car market currently composed of EVs, projected to exceed 75% by the end of 2035. German automotive brands are struggling to compete in China's EV market, as Chinese companies have established comprehensive and vertically integrated supply chains, mirroring the position that German automakers once held in the combustion engine car industry. The significant concern lies in the looming question of what will transpire when China begins to dominate the export of cars to global markets. This trend is already evident, especially in the global south. How can Germany, or any other nation, realistically compete in such a scenario? Like many European countries, Germany experiences its shares of ups and downs. Overall, its economic performance might not match that of the US or China, but it tends to fare better than the other major European economies. But again, it's the simple matter of which argument makes more sense to you. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments.